The Mukumbani Tea Estate outside Thohoyandou in Limpopo struggles to make sales and also to get tea brands to the shelves. This despite that it is placed under Limpopo Economic Development Agency. The tea estate was revitalised in 2006 after it was left bushy by Sapekoe, stating that black tea market is no longer profitable. Government has invested more than 200 million in the estate tea in a bid to rehabilitate it. SABC News reporter Michael Makungo is covering the story for us from Thohoyandou. A very good morning to you, Michael. Give us a background to this project.
Good morning to you and to all the viewers. With more than 1,000 hectares of land, the tea plantation, they're only harvesting less than 20 hectares of land. This because of a number of challenges that they're facing. They include the shortage of workers. We know that now they've 200 permanent workers that are working at the tea estate. This despite the fact that the tea estate has a capacity to employ more than 2,500 workers. We spoke with some of the workers who indicated that they need the intervention from the government, but the kind of intervention that they need is not all about money, or they don't need any funding, but they need to be assisted by market and to make sure that they get their bread into the shelves. That's the main challenge that they're facing. And they even say if it will be much better if the government will assist them, to give them a special preference to supply their brand into the government institutions like the hospitals and correctional services, to ensure that they are able to sustain themselves. With me, I'm with the head of communication and marketing in the Limpopo Economic Development, Mr. Patrick Mkwe, who will tell us more, because this tea estate has been placed under leader for more than 15 years now. He will tell us more about how are they going to support the tea estate. Mr. Mkwe, just tell us a lot of challenges at Mukumbani Tea Estate. How are you supporting it?
Well, we are, as leader, made sure that we go out in the market. We have taken this tea to some of the retail stores, in Limpopo province. But the challenge, as you would know, the demand for tea or the consumption of tea in South Africa is very, very, very low. That is why we are only harvesting 20% of the hectareage of Mukumbani Tea Estate. However, we have conducted studies that shows that we need to diversify, the farms, so that we can go and plant high-value crops that will basically make sure that those farms become sustainable and commercially viable to employ more additional people moving forward.
As we indicated, you have more than 1,000 hectares of land, and you are only harvesting 20 hectares. Why the rest of the land has been abandoned?
Look, the cost of producing tea is very, very, very high. And you know that tea is no longer being consumed in the country, and as a result, every time when we in the past, when we were harvesting the entire farm, you find that, we go into waste, because majority of people are no longer drinking tea. As a result, those, tea would not be consumed by anybody. So what we have done late in 2009, we basically, process the tea, and make sure that we add value to sell it as a finished product. But that did not basically assisted us to make sure that we become competitive. So therefore, we looked at all the scenarios and realized that the best thing to do right now is basically not only to work on the 20% hectareage, so that, as I've said, we can look at other high-value crops that are able to be produced in this province.
In terms of expanding or in utilizing the other remaining thousands of hectares, when are you going to start to work on them?
You would remember that as a 3D institution, leader would have to look at the business plans and make sure that it goes out in the market where it is necessary, to look for an investor, so that we can collaborate with an investor to make sure that we bring those crops that I spoke about. So there are plans, on the table where we are basically going to communicate with the stakeholders in that area, because one of the things that we need to do is to really go on a stakeholder campaign to make sure that the people that are affected by the farms also agree with us in terms of the new ventures that we must do out of those farms.
Since this Mukumbani Tea Estate revitalized, how much has been invested by the government, and what kind of work? What did you use that money for?
Look, every year I would say that we spend, in the region of about 12 million in terms of, making sure that the productivity still continues. But at the same time, we make sure that, salaries of people that are there, gets paid, etc., etc. I have said earlier on that, later on in 2009, government injected money to try and make sure that we beneficiate the tea to come up with a, end product that could be sold on the shelf. And therefore, we went on a marketing campaign. As we speak right now, this tea is sold in Limpopo and parts of Mpumalanga as a way of supporting, the estate. But however, the consumption of tea, the market share for the tea is very, very low. And other than that, that the SADC, particularly Kenya, in terms of the labor costs, is very, 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 very low. Producing of tea in the SADC, and as a result, it makes our tea to be less competitive. However, as I've said, we as an organization, we are continuing to look at alternative crops, that we need to plant, because that the subtropical conditions in the Vembe regions give us a favorable, access to crops such as your macadamia nuts as well as your avocados. Those are the kind of products that we are looking forward to communicating and consulting with the stakeholders and the broader government to ensure that we can produce the products and sell them and make sure that the tea estates, remain commercially sustainable.
That was Head of Communication and Marketing, Patrick Mkwe from Leader. He was just explaining about their support to the Mukumbani Tea Estate. We know that the tea estate was revitalized in 2006 after it was left by Sapekoe, stating that the black tea market is no longer profitable. Back to your studio.
Thank you so much there, and an update on that story in Limpopo.